this is a really, really great topic to talk about. And, please excuse the mess behind me. I'm in the middle of restoring a dresser for my wife's cousin as a baby shower gift. But I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about this. There are several pitfalls in woodworking. And, the first one that really came to mind for me was injury. And it's the thing that, as we're all getting started out in this, it's probably the thing that scares us the most. Getting a hand caught in a saw blade, whether it's a miter saw, band saw, table saw, doesn't matter. It's scary as hell because it's life altering, and to an extreme degree. And I've always found that starting out, that's when you get the least serious injuries. The most serious injuries I have seen have typically come from the most experienced woodworkers. The mantra I like to tell people is experience breeds complacency. Complacency breeds carelessness. And carelessness leads to the hospital. You start doing something, I've done this a million times, I'll just make this quick cut. Boom. Lose a finger. Get kicked back. Get your sleeve caught in your jointer. Because we just wanted to do something quick, we weren't paying attention, we didn't take our time, we didn't take the precautions that we need to each and every time. And that's because we think we're experienced, I've never been hurt before, and so that's where we get ourselves into trouble. And there are guys out there, and gals, have been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years, never had a major injury, ever. And they probably never will. And most of that's going to be attributed to the fact that they're taking care of their machinery, doing the proper maintenance on it, and they're taking the proper precautions whenever they're doing their work. Another pitfall is planning, or lack thereof. I know when I very first started out woodworking, for me this was an outlet for my creative side, and it still is. And I didn't want to go in with plans. I wanted to just get out there and create. It didn't work out so well. I would have an example of something like, yeah, I can build that. And so I would go out and start making cuts, and like, okay, I want it to be about this tall. So I would gauge it and measure something out and make it about 18 inches tall for a bench, for instance. And then I get 2/3 of the way into it, and okay, well now I need to attach the back. Oh well, shit! I didn't account for how I'm going to attach this down here to the base. I didn't account for how I'm going to brace this back in the middle because it's a 6-foot wide bench, and now you lean back and you got a bow in the back of it. The little things that you would mark down during the planning stage, or by going off of some pre-made plans. Or realize, crap, I cut this and I didn't account for needing to add this at the end. I got to go back and recut it, or cut a new one. I just wasted material. That's probably the biggest pitfall that it was for me, was when it came to that, was planning. And now I sit down, I make an outline, here are all the steps I plan to take. I actually will make a drawing of what it is I'm wanting to do, and I'm a terrible artist. It's bad. But I try to make sure to always write down the measurements that I want on things. How high, how wide, how deep, etc. And then based on that, I want to look at my cut list. And I'll start making out my cut list. Here's what I need for this section. And I break it down into sections. So for the base I need this. For the seat area I need this. For the back I need this. And now what do I need to be able to tie those all together? Things like that. So make sure that you're planning out what you're going to do, and it's really going to cut down on your mistakes down the road. And the last pitfall I'm going to have to say is money. It's an expensive hobby, and wood is expensive, but gotta have it. You have to have the wood, otherwise you're just working, And the biggest pitfall, though, when it comes to money is when you watch these other influencers that are out there, and I'm not an influencer, I'm just a guy that's out here talking. But when you watch some of these influencers that are on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and you see these, $50,000 shops where they've got, the best of everything, and you think, oh man, look at that, what he just made. If I had that tool, I bet I could make something like that. No, the tools don't make the products. You make the products. Can a good tool make it easier? Yes, 100%. It can make it easier. But there's people that have been making fine furniture with crude tools for thousands of years. They didn't have the Harvey Big Eye table saw, or a saw stop, or Narrow Richter chisels, or Lee Neeson hand planes. It just didn't exist, and people became true artisans with the tools they had at hand. And there's still really, really great artisans out there today. All they use are hand tools, and they keep what they consider to be true to traditional woodworking. So you don't need to get the biggest and best tools right away. Get what you can afford. Okay, and whether that's buying used off of a online marketplace, or buying something that's just a little bit underpriced. Going to Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight has some decent tools that you can use. Is it going to be the same quality as a saw stop? No. Powermatic? No. But you don't need those things, to get started. And once you get in there and you start realizing, I can do this without having to spend $6,000 on a jointer. I can do this without having a 50-inch wide drum sander. It makes a big difference. Are they useful? Yes. I'm not going to knock anybody that has them. Hell, I'd love to have some of those. But we do what we can with what we have. So those are probably my three biggest pitfalls. So I hope this was enjoyable.